Secrets, if you really look at yourself, you would be speechless. What happened to being doctors and teachers? What happened to being your brother's keeper? Nowadays, kids more worried about the...
Yo, what's good, y'all? It's your boy, Mr.BandClap, and we in the building with another podcast, y'all. Got my shades on because it is hot in the mud out here in Orlando, man. As you can see, got the Focus on Me necklaces on sale now. Check out my Instagram, shop Mayara. Send me an email. I give you the prices, and you'll be paying that plus shipping. So also, man, I got to give a shout out to the Geminis, man. This is our season. This is our month, dog. Gemini season, man. The Tupac and Biggie podcast. I'm going to talk about that a little bit on this one. That's going to be coming up in this Gemini season, dog. So you ain't don't want to miss that, y'all. You know what I mean? This podcast is going to be about the 3 stages of enlightenment. And this one right here is going to be for the fellas, man. It's been long overdue. It's about that time for me to give y'all that work. So, we got a lot to talk about. So let's get the show on the road. Met with the Baron, you can't believe what I saw. Once at his place, had a conversation with Madam Bridget. She the only one would listen. She said, my time. Will I ever be a star? How much longer will it take?
If you gon' tell me what's been truly on your mind.
True that. Alright, y'all. So before I go in and get to the podcast portion of this, I want to kind of give y'all a small little snippet of what I've been up to all this time, because I know y'all been wondering, like, yo, like, I ain't seen Mr.BandClap in a little minute, man. Where he been at, man? What he been up to? So, shout out to my homegirl Jada Artis. Also, shout out to Godfather Tank D, his wife Alexis. They got married these past 2 weeks ago. And I was blessed to be not only a part of the groomsmen, but I was also a DJ. So whenever that footage comes out of the wedding festivities, I'll be able to show y'all that. But I want to give y'all a little snippet of the performance that me and Jada did. It's going to be, the full performance is going to be posted on my BandClap TV Facebook and YouTube page very soon. And to all the people who's not signed up with my Facebook page, because that's where all the news and all of the when I come out with podcasts and stuff like that, until I get my 1,000 subscribers, which I'm almost there, y'all. Last time I checked my YouTube, I got like 970 subscribers. So I'm almost there, man. I know y'all can help me. I appreciate y'all for getting me up to the subscribers that I got. But man, I'm almost there. So this podcast is over. Hopefully I'll be at that 1K, and I'll definitely do something special for y'all if that's the case. So without further ado, I'm gonna give y'all a little snippet of me and Jada performing. And yeah, hope y'all enjoy it.
Used to rap about money and bitches, being with you, but I the different side of me, I always hit it. I'm trying to front like that was forbidden. Soon like the serpent of this time, that's how cold the lady to get it filled. God is a beauty like ice is the mother. I can't wait to get with you, my dad was stuck with my pressure. Shuffle with vocals, I think percussion. Got you screaming like baby horse, no one can love you like I love you. You the realest queen. Hey, I'm the king, so I'm in it to the finish. Give it up to me, Jada RT.
Alright, y'all, so we back. As you can see, your boy been on the move, on the grind, as always, man. Knocking out these DJ gigs, as well as still selling my jewelry. And as I said in the video, anybody who wants to check that out, go to my Instagram, shop Mayara. Send me an email, shopmayara@gmail.com. And send me an email, any questions that you have or anything like that, as far as with prices, as well as inventory,
it'll be answered there. And then once I get my website set up, and then I'll be able to hit y'all with that link so y'all can just buy it straight from the website. So that's coming very, very soon. And like I said, all of the stuff pertaining to news, when I'm going to drop my next podcast, what's it going to be about, I'll start posting stuff like that on my BandClap TV Facebook page. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, I want you to pause the video for a minute, go to my Facebook page, just type in BandClap TV, and my Facebook page should come up, and make sure you like that page and you're following that page, because any news pertaining to BandClap TV is going to be on that page. And when it comes to Mayara, I also have a Facebook page for Mayara too. And all you have to do to find that on Facebook is Mayara Jewelry and Gemstones. And I'll also put the links to these below in the description of this video as well. So that way, any news, anything that comes up, you all will be in the know. So what really made me want to do this podcast, talking about the 3 stages of enlightenment in a man's perspective, is because these last few podcasts, I've been going real hard to the women on this, because in my opinion, there's a lot more men that are quote unquote finding the light themselves. And with them finding the light, they're starting to leave a lot of these women behind, because they're starting to get to that point in their enlightenment, kind of like the point where I'm at, where being around a certain type of woman that's in that stage 1 and she's still frolicking around on that stage and not trying to move up to stage 2 and stage 3, she starts to develop that stench that I talked about in my last podcast. And a lot of these guys are waking up to that, and they don't want nothing to do with those type of women. And on the flip side, I didn't really see a whole lot of women that's on the Akasha side that's trying to upgrade these women and get them to that stage 2 and stage 3 so they can get to their spiritual enlightenment, so that way they can be a Obanani and an Akasha figure to these righteous men out here. And then also on the flip side, I didn't really see a lot of men either who was even at that point in their life where they could, or even had the knowledge to be able to speak to these women and get them to that stage either. You know, you had your Bobby Hemmett's and your brother Panic's, your sister Mayara's, and there's also this other lady named Mayara Healing Arts. She's another enlightened sister that's trying to teach these women about different tantra practices and a lot of different spiritual things that deal with sacred femininity and divine femininity, but it's still too far in between. And I mean, shout out to all of the people with positive energy who's been commenting on my videos and my podcast. I really appreciate y'all. And even the people that's been commenting has been saying that a lot of the stuff that I talk about, they haven't really heard it being brought the way I bring it since Bobby Hemmett and Brother Panic. So I'm very honored and very humble to be able to shed my own light on these subjects. And like I always say, I ain't shit, and I never call myself to be no spiritual guru or y'all should follow me or anything like that. I just call things the way I see it in my life, and if any of this that I say resonates with you, then by all means take the information and do something positive with it. Because one of the things that I really like to see in the comments is when people talk about how they was praying about something or they was looking for a certain type of information, and my video will come up on their suggested right on time, and something that I said or something that I touched on in my podcast really resonated with them, and it was able to help them get through a situation or give them the insight on how to deal with a certain situation that they was going through. So I always like those type of success stories, and I feel like when you're in this field and you're making videos and stuff like that, I feel like if you're not doing it to where subconsciously you want those success stories and stuff like that from people watching your videos, I feel like in this day and time, you shouldn't even be doing YouTube, because there's too much fuckery out here going on in general. And then when I look at a lot of these other positive YouTubers who are trying to wake people up out the matrix and trying to give their own truth in their own way as well, a lot of these YouTubers are starting to get shut down and their live streams tampered with and all of that kind of stuff. I looked at Tariq Nasheed's stream a couple days ago, and he wasn't even really able to get through the material that he had, simply because the powers that be that own YouTube kept tampering with his screen, kept tampering with the stream and all of that. So in this time that we're living in now, where anyone who's trying to spread real truth is deemed dangerous when it comes to the powers that be, when their channel gets shut down, there needs to be 5 more channels coming up in its place, giving out that same truth. Because at the end of the day, the truth can never be silenced, especially if we got that unity to be able to rally around our truth speakers, aka rally around our light beings who's trying to give you the light. So since I've been away from YouTube due to me working and taking care of my businesses, and these past few days, I don't know if any of y'all been feeling it, but I've been very, very drained. to the point where I really have to make myself get up and do the things that I need to do, because if not, I can just sleep all day. I don't know what's been going on, and I've been talking to a couple people around me. They've been feeling it too. Shout out to my homegirl Isabel Montero. She was saying something about there's a spiritual shift that's going on, and everybody on the planet has been kind of feeling this in their own way. But I've had this subject on my mind for a long time. It's just that with me going to Memphis for my little brother's graduation, shout out to him, finally graduated from high school and all of that. I'm so proud of him. I already know that once I get in Memphis, I'm really not gonna have time to drop this. So that's why I want to go ahead and get it out the way now while I'm in the first day of Gemini season. Shout out to all my Geminis out there. My birthday is actually Wednesday the 22nd, and like I've been praying about, my biggest birthday gift for me would be me getting my own place, preferably my own house, and I got the income and still got the freedom to be able to enjoy and decorate my place the way I want to and all of that. To me, that's the only way that me going through all the things that I went through in Orlando would be worth it. So I've already put that out into the universe. I remember this time in 2013, I was in the homeless shelter in Atlanta at the time. And I remember I was praying. I was like, look, one thing I'm not finna do is to spend my birthday in a homeless shelter. So something needs to happen to where I'm in a place, because if not, I'm just gonna go back home on my birthday. And that was a goal that I set for myself. And just like Anansi said on American Gods, it's just something about when you get mad, it just gets shit done. And spiritually, when you get mad, it's like things just happen a lot quicker and things just turned around. I ended up meeting a good friend in the shelter and we ended up getting a place. So on my birthday, I was in an apartment, had a roommate. It wasn't the best conditions, but my goal was met, and at least I didn't have to spend my birthday in a homeless shelter. So that's one of my testimonies, and I have a few of those actually. And throughout this lifespan of me doing these videos, I'm gonna tell a lot of these different stories and past events that happened in my life as well, because I feel like transparency is also a sign of growth, maturity, and overall wisdom, that you're able to look back at certain things that went on in your past and you're able to analyze it, take the lesson from it, and then be able to showcase that lesson to someone else that may be about to fall into the same pitfalls and traps that you fell in around that time. So I remember when I was doing the podcast about Akasha, and I remember vaguely talking about the 3 steps of enlightenment when it comes to men. I think I vaguely touched on it, but in this podcast, I just want to touch on it a little more, because with me going into the manosphere and going into the alpha sphere and going into the MGTOW sphere, whatever you call that, I'm starting to see spiritually where a lot of these men are as far as the character that they portray on YouTube. Because at the end of the day, I don't know none of these people personally, but like they say, behind every joke contains some type of truth. So even if the guy is talking about something on YouTube and they're not even living the type of life that they talk about to other people on YouTube, it's something about the information that he regurgitated that resonated with him, even if it's a situation to where he's trying to regurgitate the information out as a warning not to be like him, or he wished that he could have gotten the information that he's talking about before he made the mistakes and pitfalls that he's in. So with all of that being said, I don't take any of these YouTubers 100% serious. I just go to their channel. If they have anything that resonates with me at the current time, I may give it a listen. If it's something that I'm really intrigued about, something that I really can mess with on a mental level, I'll even super chat. Sometime I might call into the show. Shout out to the Book of Alpharonomy and the Mob Brethren for allowing me to call into their show. Also shout out to Stephon Clinkscales. I called into his show too, just to show support. And it's funny when you get on these YouTube platforms and you call into these shows and stuff like that. It's just crazy how the people on the receiving end don't even know you from a can of paint. But just because you're asking an innocent question, it may not even be something that is bothering you, but you just want to ask a question. You have so many people on the receiving end who just spew out all types of negativity and hatred and all of that. And I'm so glad that the day after he came out with that video about haters, because it is so true. And it's crazy that when a man is on his first stage and even going towards the second stage of his enlightenment, that's where he gets the most haters and the most detractors, and that's where he gets the most enemies from. Like I said, it's opposite from when a woman is on her stage 1. When a woman is on her stage 1, she attracts a whole lot of attention, even though it may be, well, I'm not even gonna say maybe, it is the wrong type of attention. It's still attention nonetheless. And I know everybody been talking about Aisha Currie, and I know I'm late as fuck when it comes to this subject, but Aisha Currie, her archetype represents a woman who was grandfathered in to stage 3 when she haven't even completed stage 1 and stage 2 yet. So she's at that stage to where she has it all, but since she really didn't have to work hard and grind like those other women who started off going through stage 1 and stage 2, who would appreciate the level that Ayesha Currie's at stage 3, she doesn't see how valuable and how royal her position really is. And a lot of those type of women, unless they have a group of Obananis around them to be able to chastise her and reassure her and show her in a safe type of way how lucky she is to be in that position, a lot of those women, they end up backsliding. They end up regressing, because at the end of the day, every woman, and I mean every woman, has to go through all 3 stages, no matter what. And the whole thing about Ayesha Currie, because she's not the only one, it's just that she's the celebrity at the time. But this happens with any woman that's in her position. They got grandfathered in to royalty pretty much, but never really had to grind and had to go through the traumatic shit that goes on at stage 1 and stage 2. And I agree with VOA when he says if she don't got a hymen, she ain't no diamond. But then you have to remember all of the things that that diamond had to go through before it turned into a diamond. A diamond is made out of an element called carbon, and that element of carbon that's deep within the earth has to go through a lot of different processes of heating up, cooling off, heating up, cooling off. It has to go through a lot of pressure, and the more of that process that that diamond goes through, the more pressure that is put on that stone and all of that, the more precious that it's going to look at the end result. So yeah, when you see that diamond poking out the ground, it looks beautiful, but at the end of the day, it was a tedious process that that diamond had to go through. And in a lot of cases, if you would have seen what that diamond looked like before it became a diamond, it wouldn't even look desirable to you. And that goes with women too. Just because you get a woman that's a virgin and you think that everything is just going to be gumdrops and rainbows because she hasn't been quote unquote tainted, you have to remember that that pressure and that heat and all of the things that turned that stone into a diamond, it still has to happen, meaning that female nature is female nature. It's going to kick in whether she's a virgin, whether she's a saint, whether she's a nun, whatever. And there's nothing that you can really do to stop that, because that's just nature. I had this guy that I worked with a long time ago, and he told me this story about how he got this woman and she was a virgin, and just because she was a virgin, she had a nice body, you know, her personality was okay. He ended up marrying her because he really thought that he quote unquote got a diamond. Oh, and I forgot to mention, she was coming from overseas too. To all of my guys who think that just because they go overseas and get a woman and bring her back to America, everything is just gonna be like this fairy tale king and queen type of situation. So things were cool at first, but female nature kicked in. She got real accustomed to the American lifestyle of going out partying and coming back 2-3 in the morning drunk, stuff like that. And see, just like how you have woman's intuition, for us men, we have intuition too. It's just that since women are emotional beings, and with us men, we tend to overshadow the emotional side of us with logic. So our intuition, if we're dealing in that aspect, can be a little weaker than theirs, but we still have it. And I remember him telling me that his intuition was kicking in one night. She said she was gonna go out with her girls. They've already been arguing and fighting and stuff like that, verbal fighting, and she already been crossing the line when it comes to respect in a relationship. And if y'all don't know anything about the 7 levels of disrespect, y'all need to really check out Tariq Nasheed's book, because he breaks that down beautifully. So she went out, and he said that while he was laying down in his bed looking at the clock, 2 in the morning passed, 3 in the morning passed, and that male intuition popped in. He was like, man, I know she's cheating. I know she's cheating. Sure enough, 3 o'clock came. She's coming back into the house, stumbling, can't hardly walk, clothes all torn up. And just as he suspected, he looked down there, and it was obvious that she's had an experience with the American Tyrone. What y'all call him? Ray Ray. She went and found her a yardie, a rude boy. All right, I'm done. I'm done. But y'all get the picture, because I mean, let's face it, there is a way that you can create a diamond. You know, there are such things as man-made diamonds, and they look almost identical to a diamond that came out of the dirt. It's just that when I looked up how to man make a diamond, it is a very, very tedious process to do it. Just like you get a woman who's a virgin, and you think you're going to be able to turn her into a kasha without her going into all those 3 stages. I mean, if you were a righteous man with the tools spiritually, because money don't mean nothing, status don't mean nothing, your looks don't mean nothing, your body don't mean nothing, but spiritually, if you got the spiritual tools needed and you don't mind the tedious process that is going to be, then yes, it is very, very possible that you can be in a long-term relationship with a woman who's a virgin and turn her into an akasha woman, a Obanani woman. It is possible. But just like that tedious process that it takes to make a man-made diamond, you got to be all in when it comes to that. And in this society, like the good sister Sweet Brown eloquently said, ain't nobody got time for that. I mean, like they say, we live in a microwave type of generation. Gone is the time of those families who built their house from the ground up, and then them and their kids had to work outside, work on the farm where they grew their own food. They raised their own chickens and grew their own herbs and all of that. So when harvest time came and it was time to eat that food that you raised and eat that food that you slaved so hard during the wintertime and the springtime and the summertime to plant and prune and put out, when Thanksgiving time came and when the fall came, it just felt so wonderful eating that food. And you felt so appreciative when you take that first bite and you're able to physically see and physically taste all of that hard work, all of that dedication that it took for you to have that meal. All those times where you had pain in your body and you was going through different things and you was like, man, I really don't feel like getting up and watering these cabbages and watering these potatoes. I really don't feel like going out there and feeding these chickens and all of that. And how you was able to persevere through and grind all the way through till you get to this moment where you got your harvest. That's the reason why a lot of us black people that live in that generation were some of the most headstrong, some of the most physically dominant, spiritually, mentally dominant, because this stuff that we're talking about when it comes to manhood and stuff like that, back then, that was the way of life. There was no incentive to do anything other than, and when it came to the different roles and all of that stuff, everything was pretty much understood. The jobs that men had back then, you had to be physically fit, whether you was working on the farm or working in the factory. You also had to be mentally fit, and you also had to be emotionally in check, because back then, racism and white supremacy was at an all-time high, just like it is now. But back then, it was truly prevalent to the point where after you done got your harvest, so you got all of your fruits and vegetables and stuff that you worked so hard to make and grow, you gotta go out into town and trust that that white man is gonna be able to give you what you feel like your harvest was worth. And you had to trust that on your way there and on the way back, nothing bad happened to you. I mean, times was scary back then like they are now. Nothing's really changed, but the mentality that we had as a people, the masculine energy and the manliness that we had, that's what I feel like has been slowly leaving us when it comes to the community that we're in now. And even when it came to the women were always our nurses, our cooks, our great educators and school teachers, and our quote-unquote emotional recharging stations. And they were very happy to be in that position. And the beauty of it was that back in those times, the men recognized and had love for the women and recognized the women in their life for the role that she played. And then the woman did the same thing for the guy that she was with. Because even now, I talk to a lot of these women that disguise themselves as feminists and stuff like that. And you know, I always have that transparent and non-judgmental countenance about myself. So I can get things out of people that most people, even close to them, couldn't even get out of them just because of the energy that I have. And these women be telling me about how low-key they wish that they had a man to be able to put her in that feminine position to where all she had to do was just take care of the house, take care of the children, and she had a man that she really trusted in who was an alpha male who would be able to provide different things in the house and take care of the bulk of that so that she can focus on either making a business or being more involved with her children. Because like I said in my last podcast when I was talking about Michael Jackson and R. Kelly, the people that suffer the most in all of this is the children. And those children grow up and they become the thuggos and the thoughts. And I mean, it's really sad because you got so many people that's talking about it, but nothing is really being done. It's just people are talking about it. And shout out to Minister Jap, because I started to really see this as well before he even came out with the videos talking about the 90s and how the 90s were the birth of a lot of the fuckboy shit and all of that we have today. I got so many women that I went to school with as kids. I mean, elementary school. And I remember back then, you know, we had different words for them back then. We didn't call them thoughts. We called them hoochie mamas and fast and hot girls and all of that kind of stuff. But it was girls in my class, and I could see even back then what they were going to end up being now had they not had any kind of direction or anything like that to turn them away from that. And lo and behold, most of those women, I would say about 97% of them, are either on a second, third, or fourth kid now. Not married, multiple baby daddies, and a lot of them are overweight now. And at that stage where they're just wondering like, why me? Why me? And while they're saying that, they have children who are looking up to them and who need them to be strong and need need them to be on that Akasha type of level, because the way I feel, unless a woman is at stage 3, she shouldn't be having kids. That's just my conjecture, because before you start having kids, you need to have some type of wisdom and divine femininity about you that you can pass on to your children so they can feel that love. And I can think back to when they were little, when they were my age and we was in class together, how they mom would just let them do anything that they wanted to do, let them watch anything that they wanted to watch. I remember those conversations where the little girls in my class would be talking about how they was up looking at BET Uncut and learning all the twerk dances and learning all of the moves that those video vixens were doing on those videos when they were supposed to be asleep somewhere. And see, I'm talking elementary school. I remember when we was in school, we used to have these dances called sock hops, and in those sock hops they would move all the tables back in the cafeteria, and it'll be kind of like a school dance, but everybody would throw their shoes off in the corner and dance in your socks. That's why it was called sock hops. And I remember how most of the guys, you know, we would still be kind of doing our little goofy shit, you know, because we was more into watching stuff like SmackDown and wrestling and all of that kind of stuff other than dancing. But man, I remember when certain songs like Feeling on Your Booty by R. Kelly and Back That Ass Up, like different songs would come on at that sock hop, and these little girls would be dancing like grown women, to the point where the chaperones had to come in and break everybody up, like, yo, get off of her, get off of him, all of that kind of stuff. And with me doing my shadow work, a lot of those memories are coming back like none other. So I remember back in the day how a lot of those girls used to act, so I'm not even surprised when it comes to seeing them now and they're in the shape that they're in, because it starts a lot younger than you think. A lot of these women live very traumatic lives coming up, and when it comes to us guys, when we're coming up, and this is whether you had both parents in the house or you had a single mother, for the most part, especially before we reach puberty, we all start out on that quote-unquote blue pill state, that feminine type of state. Now again, when I say feminine, I don't mean you're a boy and you're acting like a girl. What I mean is you're innocent, because for a guy, divine femininity is innocence. So when you was a little boy, you was playing around and building things with your blocks and watching wrestling, doing things that little boys are supposed to do. But something happens to you when you start to look at those little girls, and you're not thinking about when you kiss them or if they come around you, they're going to give you cooties, so you need to stay away from them. When you quote unquote outgrow that, and then you get older and older, depending on how you was raised up, things can go actually one of 4 ways when it comes to the stages of enlightenment when it comes to dealing with women. Either you have that guy that came from a very loving type of household, was always looking at those Disney rated PG, rated G type of movies coming up, where the guy would always give the girl flowers and stuff like that, and she would just fall in love with him, and you know, all of that type of stuff. And maybe this little boy or this teenage boy wasn't an ugly boy, so he was able to do that kind of stuff with the younger girls, and since the younger girls liked him already, it would work for him. But then as those women matured and those little girls got older and became women, that little boy that's now a man, he still has that rose-colored glasses type of ideology, and since it worked for him when he was a kid, he thinks now that maybe this is what I need to do to get a woman. Give her flowers. Well, it's not flowers anymore, just give her money, take her out on expensive dates, pay her phone bills and pay her bills, buy her purses and get her hair and nails done, all of that kind of stuff. And see, if a woman hasn't been tainted like most women are today, maybe he could have got away with doing that if she was a very virtuous and deserving type of woman. But with that guy not really going through any traumatic type of situations where he would start to develop that spirit of discernment, he don't know how to vet women, as far as he don't know how to look at a woman and see is she deserving of these type of things, because I mean, he never really had to. So when he meets one of these women who came up in a very traumatic type of way, you know, they was able to get everything that they wanted when they was a child, so they never really had to grind hard or know how to appreciate something that you worked hard for. So she would get things, throw them away, ask her parents for something else, and they would just give it to her, you know, those type of women. Or if he meets a woman who really came up in a very, very abusive type of upbringing, whether it was abuse from her parents, abuse from the guys that she got with, and all of that type of stuff, and these women never got therapy or any humbling experiences, and they end up merging their experiences and merging the energy that they're carrying with them that's toxic to that innocent man who, in his heart of hearts, he thinks that he's just doing the right thing to win over her heart, and she ends up doing this guy wrong or whatever, and now he's just heartbroken. Like, damn, I did everything that I thought that I was supposed to do to quote unquote win this woman's heart. why did I get mistreated the way I did? Why am I experiencing this heartbreak like I did? But what he doesn't realize is when a woman is broken, money, cars, getting nails done, bags, purses, all of those material things that you was able to do when she was a little girl, and she appreciated those things because in her innocence, she didn't have any type of blockages or any type of negativity. So that pathway to her heart, it was clear and it was innocent, meaning that it didn't take much for her to quote unquote love you. When a woman is broken, the only type of thing that you can really do at that point to quote unquote fix her is to direct her to some therapy. And in a lot of ways, it's much better to get the therapy at the early stages, because God forbid that woman ends up getting into relationship after relationship after baby daddy after baby daddy, and that brokenness was never fixed. That wound was never healed. And it's like they say, misery loves company. And I see a lot of miserable quote unquote blue pill guys out here because of that. And this is how they wind up going on to their stage of enlightenment. Then you have boy number 2. Now, boy number 2 can end up on his red pill journey in 2 different ways. You got the iceberg slim way, a boy who came up from a very traumatic, abusive type of past, that either their mother was very abusive to them, or they seen their father being abusive to their mother, or the father wasn't in the picture. So that boy was looking at all of these guys coming in and out of the house after his mom. And God forbid if it was a sick and twisted situation where those guys that were coming in and out of that mom's house ended up doing something sexual or abusive to that little boy. So this little boy had to quote unquote grow up fast. He trying to figure out how to hustle and make money instead of trying to make good grades and staying in school. He was that little boy in the 6th grade when it was movie day, while everybody else bringing Disney movies and Jimmy Neutron and Toy Story. This is the boy that bought How to Be a Player to school, because this is the type of stuff that he's watching at home, because I mean, most of the times he's by himself because his mom is at work, and a lot of times when the mom is at work, she really don't have nobody to watch him like that. So while he's at home by himself, hungry, he's getting into all kind of mischief, going into his mom's old tapes. And see, I'm talking about back in the day. Imagine what these kids have access to now in this day and time. You got the internet, which in itself can be a devil when it comes to a little child. I mean, it's crazy. So that little boy is having grown-up experiences with these other girls who's been through the same type of traumatic situation that he going through. And I've even heard situations to where these little boys done had sexual experiences with their mama's older friends who were grown women. I mean, the shit is crazy. So this little boy has been prematurely introduced to what you would call the sexual underworld at an age where he's too young to even be able to comprehend what's really going on. Plus, he never really truly had a childhood like that because of the way he came up. So he had to be a grown man at an early age when he should be still trying to quote unquote find himself. And see, for a guy, when you start having sex with a lot of these succubus type of women that's carrying that stage 1 Lilith type of energy with them, there's a stench that you have as well. And for those type of women, it's like a pheromone, because those traumatic girls that boy was doing sexual things with, when those girls got older, they turned into the succubus women would start to have sex with when he get older. And it gets to the point where the older he gets, the less and less he starts to value women in general, because he sees how easy they are to have sex with. And since he's dealing with those women who are on that stage 1 Lilith type of path, he also sees how scandalous, how hellish, how demonic, and just how overall sexually promiscuous that these succubus women can be, to the point where his capacity to love is damn near a mustard seed now, because that innocence that he used to have is long gone. So this is how he starts his journey of enlightenment. Or on the flip side of that same path, that same analogy, you have that boy who might have had 2 parents in the house, might have had a single mother, but she pretty much gave him everything that he wanted. So he turned into like a pretty boy type of dude who was always able to get anything that he wanted out of his parents without having to work for it. So he's that boy that always comes to school with the freshest pair of Jordans on. He's that boy that always comes to school with the freshest video games and with the newest anything. Back in the day when those gel pens came out and we used to give ourselves makeshift tattoos, he would be the dude that could get the good gel pens, the ones that had the scent in them. He was that dude at lunchtime back when we used to have ice cream machines and drink machines and cookies and cakes and pies for lunch. Back when if you had $5 while everybody else was eating slop, you could have hot wings and nachos and barbecue chicken. See, I come from that era. So he was that kid that was able to splurge out at lunchtime. And that boy had the energy around him to where all the girls in the school, sometimes even the teachers, would just be all over him. And most times he didn't have to give those girls nothing. They just wanted to be in his presence because he was just the popular dude at school. Now, if that little boy grows up and stays in that mindset that he's in, he will grow up thinking that there's really no such thing as unconditional love when it comes to women, because ever since he came up, he saw how money and status and looks and swag was able to get him all of the girls in the school. And those times where he got older and his parents wasn't able to give him that type of lifestyle and that type of popularity that he was so accustomed to getting when he was a lot younger, he would see how he wouldn't even really get the attention from the girls that he got back then. So he never really was able to develop that true inner character and that true inner confidence about himself, because he would look at those material things that he had on and those material things and the energy that those material things would attract. He looked at that as the end all be all to get women, and deep down inside he feels like he's nothing without these things. And this is the mindset that he goes into when he starts on his journey of enlightenment. So then you have boy number 3. We would call him the educated lame. We would call him the nerd. He would be the loser, the dude that was smart, and all he wanted to do is just pass his class and get good grades, because he truly believed that all to life is pretty much getting good grades, going to college, getting a very high profile corporate type of job to where he can prove wrong all of these bullies that fucked with him as a kid, and also so he can laugh in the faces of all of the women who would down him and all of that kind of stuff. And I remember when I came up in school, all of the quote unquote nerdy type of guys, they had their own table that they sat at. And it's funny because at that table there were a few girls there too, because maybe they liked wearing long dresses to school, and maybe they liked wearing overalls, or maybe because they had those thick glasses so they looked like Spinelli off of Recess with the 2 pigtails. And before I got contacts, I remember there was a few times that I would sit at that table. And it's funny because when you're at the bottom and you're chilling with all of the people at the bottom who are losers and people that gave up on life and things like that, they are so accepting of you. I mean, they would make sure I had a chair. Like, no, don't sit there. That's where Ricky's gonna sit. That's where he's sitting. Don't sit there. They welcome me with open arms. But man, when I started to get my swag together, I was able to finally start buying clothes that fit me. I went from the Shacks to the Fubu's. I was able to get my eczema straightened out and get contacts. So now that I started to change my look, my status started to change. Now, even though on the inside I still felt like a loser, because that was a whole nother type of therapy that I personally needed to get. It was funny how when I started to get accepted by the popular people and the people who were kind of average, but they just weren't nerds and losers, it would be crazy how they would try to treat me differently because they thought I was quote unquote one of them. And one thing that I could always say, even when I was in that crowd of the popular guys and all of that stuff, I knew my position. I knew that the only reason why I'm accepted over here is because, number one, my talents. I was a badass saxophone player. I could rap, I could make beats, and I was always one to use my talents to gain the upper hand. And then number two, I started to really change my look up. And I knew that if any of those things changed, even by a little bit, I would end up back over there with the nerds and the losers. And it's funny because some of those quote unquote educated lames, nerds and losers, when I would have those times where I would fall below the quote unquote standard to be among the popular guys, they always welcome me back with open arms. And growing up and graduating and looking at a lot of them now, these dudes have went on to live very, very successful lives. And a lot of those women that was a part of the quote unquote losers table at school, they grew up to be very, very sexy. I mean, I just linked up with one of the women that I used to go to school with back in elementary school. And I remember her being like this real quiet type of girl, not talking to nobody, not doing nothing. And she would get a lot of people that talked bad about her behind her back because they couldn't really figure her out because she was so quiet. And just looking at her now, the way she's just blossomed to be this beautiful ebony queen. Now, for the guys, on the downside, if those guys never got the therapy that they were supposed to get to show them that even though you decided to stay in school and get a job, you know, do the things that this system deemed as being an upstanding citizen, an upstanding and successful man in this system, that doesn't make you any less of a man, period. So these type of guys come up two different ways. Either A, they end up being a part of the incel community because they never really growed out of that childhood type of trauma. They never really grew out of the things that they like doing when they was a kid, and they really don't want to change. So they just like, look, I'm just pissed off because nobody wants me, and I'm just gonna live my life hating women and pretty much everybody else. Either you have that, or you have the group of guys who were quote unquote educated lames, losers, whatever you want to call them, and they end up going from Steve Urkel to Stephon. And these guys, end up going MGTOW because they see that back when they were focused on going to school and doing all of that, no girls really wanted them like that when they was stuck in their books with their glasses on and their overalls and their Dockers because they couldn't afford Dickies. And they see how they didn't really get any attention from women. But now that they're successful and they're traveling and they've fixed their diet so they're looking better, and now they're seeing all of those women from the past trying to come back into their lives, and they see them for who they really are, and they're just like, look, I'm not about to play this game, I'm not about to go in that direction. And they feel like any woman that tries to come to them now, since they're an upgraded version of what they used to be physically, because they still got therapy that they need to get that they haven't got. So that's the mindset that they have when they start their journey of enlightenment. And then you have the fourth boy. Now he could be any one of the three. It's just a toss-up. This is the kid who either been in both situations where he was able to experience how it is to be quote-unquote alpha, and also how it feels to be quote-unquote beta. But when he grew up, he was just a real quiet type of kid that stayed to himself. He didn't really give a fuck about school like that, but since he was there, he would make just enough to pass the class. So he wouldn't really be considered a nerd or an educated lame because dude was just average in school. He didn't really hang around too many people like that, and nobody could really figure him out. And the older he got, he would start to use that mysterious nature to his advantage. And that's how he would get the things that he wanted. That's how he would end up getting women. And he started to learn that being secret is actually being sacred. It's good not to, when you're talking to a woman or going on a date with her or whatever, to tell all of your business. The more mysterious that you are to that woman, the more intrigue she starts to get with you. Now, this goes back to what I said in my podcast about the warrior gods and the light beings, because the reason why I say this person could go either way, because if this mystery guy ends up getting into a fight because some guy just wanted to test him and see what he's about, and he ends up beating that guy's ass, now his mysteriousness turns into being alpha, especially if he's a real smart dude who could be a popular guy, or he could be an educated lane, but he decides not to even play that field. He just decides to have his own lane and do stuff the way he wants to do it. And even though he may come off as a little weird, he's respected. Or it could go the other way to where this boy is just using the mysteriousness to his advantage, but he doesn't grind and he doesn't work secretly to the point where when he gets tested, he ends up getting his ass whooped. And unless you're like trifling ass Melvin, shout out to Ken Edwards TV, that's like one of the funniest skits that I've ever watched in my life. But there's not a lot of trifling ass Melvins out there that when you get your ass whooped, it's still on some prophetic type shit. Most times when you're that mystery guy and you get your ass beat or you get done in some type of way, you automatically get sent to the loser's table because people think that they figured you out. Now, you can turn that experience into you being a trickster. You get your weight up, you secretly get in that gym, start working out, all of that, and then when the second person and the third person tries to test you, you whoop their ass, and now you're back into that alpha again. So this is the mindset that this fourth boy goes into when he's on his journey to enlightenment. And there's so many other archetypes that I could use, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to keep it at those. But now I'm going to start talking a little bit more in general. So for a guy going on that enlightenment type of journey, whether it's just through life, dealing with women, unplugging from the matrix, finding out that the religion that you was into, that you was raised up in, was nothing but a construct to keep you asleep, all of these different things is going to want to make you go on this journey of enlightenment. And when we're talking about the red pill, that first stage is rage, because the red pill is a very, very bitter pill, depending on if you was one of those 4 archetypes that had to take that red pill. You learning that everything that you thought you knew, you don't really know shit. You learning that everything that you thought was morally right, everything that you thought was the right way, you find out that it's really the wrong way, or that there were other ways that you could have went that would have been a lot more feasible to you, but you was taught to go this way, you was forced to go this way, and you find out that you went through all of that for nothing, or whatever is in your mind that made you take that red pill. And when you take it and you get that knowledge, it can be very, very frustrating. Like, I know me, when I first got my dose of the mental and spiritual red pill, and I started finding out about the Illuminati and all the stuff that you got to do to get into the industry and how evil the music industry is, for a while I stopped rapping. Like, I just didn't have a incentive, or I just didn't have that creative energy to keep rapping. It's like it all got sucked away, because in my mind, the reason why I wanted to be a rapper was to be rich and famous and to be on BET 106 and Park, because you know, back in the day, that was an honor. You know, when Rich Homie Quan came out and he was one of the first rappers that was independent to be on 106 and Park, BET, man, that was a hell of an accomplishment back in the day. way. But imagine now you're getting that red pill consciousness type of information, that stage 1, and now you're thinking like, damn, he must have had to do some gay shit or sell his soul or sacrifice somebody, or he had to do something other than just grinding hard and making a hot song. Everybody likes it and he just got that popularity to the point that got him there. We just think the worst. Let's talk about this from an aspect of dealing with women. Stage 1 is the savage stage when it comes to them. And I'm gonna throw some names out here, and when I say these names, I'm not talking about these brothers in a negative type of way or anything like that. I'm only talking about the archetype of the way they present themselves on YouTube. I don't know any of these brothers personally, so I don't want it to seem like I'm bashing them or anything like that. But for a guy, especially who came up in a traumatic experience that gave you the red pill, like you was being all nice to a chick and then they fucked you over, got with a quote unquote Tyrone or bad boy, and you just looking like, damn, why me? And then you took the red pill and you was just like, man, fuck these hoes. On some Tupac shit, I'm finna just dog these chicks out, because I mean, at the end of the day, that's what they want, right? That's what they want. So I'm gonna give it to them. I'm gonna be a savage. I'm gonna fuck these hoes to sleep. I'm gonna dig their guts out until they mother. Yo, man, shout out to Steph Clinks, man. Shout out to Steph Clinks. Shout out to Alpha Male Strategies. Shout out to C Boogie. You got so many young guys who's on that stage 1 where they just like, man, fuck these hoes, man. I'm just gonna be a savage. Like, when you look in Steph Clinkscales' eyes, you see the savage in them, man. When you look in the eyes of some of these dudes, you know, old school Alpha Male Strategies, back when he was on that fuck these hoes to sleep, you can look at Alpha Male Strategies and you can tell, man, you can look in the savage eyes and tell that they really about their life. Now, when you talk about stage 1 on the savage side of the game, this is where you fuck the most women. This is where you have sex with the most chicks, is on this level, especially in this generation, because you got so many women who are being brought up without any alpha guidance in their lives, and they just looking for that dominant male type of energy to quote unquote put them in their place. And the first place that they go to, the first group of people that they see that have that type of energy about them, are the savage dudes that's on stage 1. Remember when I said to a woman who's trying to enlighten themselves, get to that Akasha level, when they start on their stage 1, they're gonna have that energy of a succubus woman, because the underworld is where you have to go to start. And like I said, since you're in the underworld where all of the succubus women and those savage type of women who got a body like Megan Thee Stallion, but they grew up listening to City Girls and Cardi B and all of that, so they them type of women that'll set you up, rob you, and all of that kind of stuff. You're gonna be in the arena and you're gonna have the type of energy that those women have. And in that realm where those type of women are, those chicks that you call bad bitches, the savage dudes that's on stage 1, man, it's a playground for them, good and bad, because as you can see, a lot of these guys who are on that stage 1 and they're steady climbing up, going higher and higher and higher up the ladder until they get to stage 3. You see that these guys get an enormous amount of hatred, and I hate to say it, but it's mostly from other guys, because the only way you start getting hatred from the women too is when you start climbing up the ladder where their stench starts to get so unbearable that you wouldn't even want to touch them with a 30-foot pole. So you start to reject more women than you have sex with, so they can't suck away any of your energy like the vampiric being that they are. That's when you start getting hatred from the women of the stage 1 Lilith side of the game. Now, like I said, for women, there's a very strong incentive for them to stay in stage 1, because as long as you're in stage 1, you can still be controlled by the system. You're still dependent on this system. Therefore, the system can destroy you if you quote unquote get too savage. And giving y'all a sneak peek about the Tupac and Biggie podcast, this is the energy that ended up leading Tupac to his demise, because with him being a Gemini, he had that side of him that was like a Tahuti, very knowledgeable, very poetic, very intelligent and upstanding type of dude. But him getting into the limelight, in his own words, selling my soul for material riches, fast cars and bitches, along with this system of soulless beings who can easily turn a message that you're trying to uplift your people with against you. Tupac ended up slowly turning into the same stereotypical thug that he was speaking out against, because he too was a traumatized human, unable to grieve. So even though he had a spirit and a side of him that was already on stage 3, the more he got into this industry and the more he started to attract those negative and thug-like experiences, him keep on regressing back to stage 1, which was being a savage with his moon in Aries, is what ultimately led to him being able to easily be controlled by the system of soulless beings through his anger. And the more he stayed in that savage state, being uncontrollable and hard-headed and not listening and all of that, all of those connections that he ended up getting, all of the friends that he ended up getting while he was acting in his stage 3 self, he ended up burning a lot of bridges with that fire. He ended up burning a lot of those connections that he used to have. He didn't heed those warnings that his friend Biggie Smalls would tell him, which led to him having some very suffering type of experiences, like that quad studio shooting that could have been prevented. But I'm gonna break all that down in the next podcast. So us as men, we all have those moments where we're just like, fuck the world, me against the world. And just like for women, it's dangerous. For guys, it's dangerous too, because once you go inside of that sexual underworld and you already got that stench, aka pheromone, on you, so all of these quote unquote bad chicks, succubus type of women, are gonna be throwing themselves at you, and you get with the wrong woman, you end up getting her pregnant, or you end up getting with the wrong woman who's riddled with spiritual parasites, like I was saying about that analogy about the chicken in the oven. And now as a man, your body is riddled with so much things, so much negative energy and spiritual parasites, to the point where now it's like you're climbing up the ladder with 500-pound weights on your legs, meaning that it's going to be so hard for you to climb up that most guys end up staying in that space. And this system of soulless beings definitely got a place that you can go where you can be the biggest savage ever. And you know what that place is? A jail cell, which ain't nothing but the 20th century plantation. And you can be a savage and you can be a buck there all you want. Now, with every stage, you have a group of gatekeepers that'll take you from stage 1 to stage 2, and it'll take you from stage 2 to stage 3. On the conscious side, the gatekeeper from stage 1 to stage 2 will be like a Underground Railroad radio, or like a Brother Polite, Tariq Nasheed, who else? Young Pharaoh, Sarah Suit Seti. And when we look at the manosphere perspective, I would say a good gatekeeper from stage 1 that'll take you to stage 2 would be somebody like Alpha Male Strategies. Because if you see his growth, you go back to his videos that he did back in 2017, 2018, those old vintage videos when he was talking about fuck these hoes to sleep and we trying to get pussy regardless, even if we gotta get with a chick who wants to be in a relationship. And even though we know we don't want to be committed to this chick, we just want to fuck, so we'll just tell her, a little white lie just to get the poom poom. He went from talking about that to, in 2018, he started talking more about being on your purpose, which is a lot more going towards stage 2, which is the alpha male. Now, this is the thing when it comes to stage 2, which is the alpha male. Now, when it comes to manhood, I mean like sheer manhood. For a guy, the alpha male would be the highest level when we're just talking about manhood. Because see, the alpha male is the guy who was able to take that image and take that energy of being a savage and hone that energy into building his own business, hone that energy into getting his body right, getting his health right, getting his finances in order, getting out of his mom's house and getting his own house. Got money in the bank. Mental level is very peaceful because now he has everything that this system deems as, if you have these things, possession of these things, that means that you made it in life. The alpha male is somebody that all the guys dream of being that type of man, but only a few guys can get there. Now, the OGs of this stage are people like Alan Roger Currie, people like Steve the Dean Williams, the man mindset. And even though C Boogie is a newcomer in the game when it comes to YouTube, with him creating the Dom Game division, and with people like Steph Clinks, who's taking that Dom Game division to a whole nother level within itself, and also with C Boogie having that discipline, with him being in the military, him having that wisdom, with him being in marriages and having children and been through a lot of humbling experiences, and he's able to use those wisdom experiences to fuel his own business, to fuel his own empire called the Dom Game division. And who knows, the nigga might start writing books too, because usually that's what happens. It gets to the point where you start to see your influence being so helpful and so understanding to the people around you that it comes to the point where it's like, man, me doing these YouTube videos ain't enough. Me doing these live streams ain't enough. Me doing these panels ain't enough. I need to give these young people coming up, I need to give them something that's physical that they can hold in their hand, or I want to give them something physical that they can read, so that anything that they may have a problem with or anything like that, they can just flip through a chapter in my book and I can give them that same motivation as if they're subscribed to me on Patreon. You got Guy on Girl TV, he got his book out, Love Can't Wait. You got Zoe Williams, he got his book out, The Holographic Relationship, The Relationship Dismount. You got so many of us black men that's on this stage too, and I mean, it's rising higher and higher and higher, and I'm glad about this. But the only thing is, with great power is now, if not ever before, gonna garner a huge responsibility, because you being the alpha male is like being a king. So everybody is gonna look up to you. You're gonna be a leader. And if they see the leader with a chink in his armor, or if they see that leader fucking off with getting caught up and doing too many hypocritical things that's against everything that he wrote about in his book, that's against everything that he talked about on his YouTube channel and all of that type of stuff, and you start to get discredited, the fall is very, very hard. It's like falling from a 2-story building, because now you don't have to worry about you let yourself down. With you being the alpha male, you're letting others down too, that's looking at you as a blueprint to how they should handle different situations in their lives. Because like I say, we have too many people in this generation and period who can't separate the messenger from the message. Now, like I said, for most people, for most guys, once they reach that status as an alpha male, that's usually where most people will stop at. Even when we talk about the road to consciousness, some OGs of stage 2 would be Dr. Sabi, Black Dot, Professor Griff, KT, the Arts Degree, John Henry Clark, Boyce Watkins, anybody on the conscious side of the game who talks about things that you can do to live your best life and becoming the most successful in this life is what stage 2 is all about. Now, the final stage, which is true enlightenment, that final stage, which is the difference between you becoming the most alpha version of yourself versus becoming the greatest version of yourself. Now, this is where things start to get very, very different. Now, remember when I was talking about the man and woman side of the game, when a woman goes from stage 2 to stage 3, which is Akasha, which is the great mother, which is that Obanani type of woman, just like Aisha Currie, she starts to get less and less and less attention from guys. Because with those type of women, it's not only a shift in the way they're going to start looking and the way they're going to start dressing and the way that they're going to start acting overall. When a woman receives that third six and she starts going from stage 2 to stage 3, her energy is going to start to change from being a bad chick to a great mother. She's going to start looking at those savage dudes the same way you would look at a bad little kid who need a whooping so they can act right. And she's not going to want to associate herself in areas where those type of guys are going to be at. It's going to get to the point where she's going to get so sick and tired of those type of dudes hopping into her DMs that she's going to end up either taking all her pictures off of Instagram, so that way only thing that you see when you go to her page, which is going to be private, would be positive quotes and messages and things involving her business. And if you do see her, she's covered up and undesirable when it comes to those type of men. She's going to start to look at things a whole lot differently. Women who are on that stage 3 level, they're your nurses, they're your therapists, they're your Young Van Zants, and those type of women that the savage dudes will go to for therapy. Those type of alpha male dudes will look at her as someone that they can come to. Now, they may not tell this to their boys because they're going to look at that as beta. They're going to look at it as simpish, because being the alpha male is turning more and more and more into a social construct than a mindset and a way of life. An Akasha woman don't mind being at the house, taking care of her children or learning new recipes to cook. Got a business that she started that she's very successful in, because she know at the end of the day, because she's been out there in them streets when she was younger. She used to go out to the clubs and go out to the bars and all of that stuff, so she knows what's out there and she's not interested. It's so hard to find Obanani, like I say, because every time she pops her head out, she ends up getting taken and getting married, because a guy who knows himself can spot a woman who loves herself a mile away, because she's going to stick out like a sore thumb, because she's going to be original, she's going to be authentic, and she's not going to fit the mold of the normal societorial type of woman. She's going to have her own values that's going to be in line with Mayat, that's going to be aligned with nature, that's going to be aligned with the divine feminine. And if she's not coupled with a man, and if she's not a healer as far as like a nurse or a doctor or someone like that, she's a spiritual healer. She's a woman that knows her way around herbs, and she knows her way around different spiritual practices that can heal you. And her knowledge and her spirituality is so far out of this world that the friends and the people that she used to hang around don't even understand her anymore. They see her as crazy, but they're secretly envious of her because her life is so peaceful. She don't have to deal with all of the negativity that her friends have to go through. But instead of them studying her and maybe asking her, you know, what are some of the things that you do and how did you become this enlightened goddess being that you are? So maybe I can be that too. They would just be stuck in their own ways, swimming in a pool of insanity, doing the same things, getting the same bad result, heartbroken, broken in general. So the Akasha being don't really have friends like that. She don't like going out unless it's for business, but when she comes around, her femininity is so great, even if she's fully covered up, that she can attract any guy that she wants. It's just that most dudes, they got these very negative ideologies when it comes to women, that when they see a woman like her that breaks every single mold when it comes to the way that they think that women should act and women should portray themselves as, she's often looked at a lot, but she's never really approached like that, because most dudes, even though they see her physically, they can't really see her spiritually, so they wouldn't even know how to approach a woman like that. And see, that's the reason why I say that there's really no incentive for a woman to be on that stage 3, because it's easy for a woman to regress because the attention is in stage 1. The constant validation is at stage 1. The catcalling and all the friends and so-called pals and all of that, that's at stage 1. Now with us guys, it's different because the older we get as a man and the higher you go up on this ladder, the more and more desirable you get to women. It's just that the higher you go up, the better quality of women that you find yourself starting to attract themselves to you. Now for a man, when he goes from stage 1 to stage 2, in his mind he's like, man, there's got to be more to life than struggling and all of this stuff being a lie and getting with these bottom of the barrel succubus stage 1 type of women. There's got to be more to life than this. And then they go up to stage 2. Now they're like, man, I'm successful, I'm an alpha male, I got everything that I was taught that I was supposed to get. But man, it's got to be more to life than material success. There's got to be more to life than having sex with all these different women and all of this stuff. Then when you get to stage 3, you're just saying there's got to be more to life, period. Now for a guy, there's no incentive for him to go to stage 3, and everyone has their own interpretation of what stage 3 is to them, because stage 3 represents the enlightened man. And when you get to this stage, you find people like Solo Immortal, you find people like Rom Wills. On the conscious side of the game, you have people like Bobby Hemmett and Phil Valentine and Deborah Blair, C. Freemanelle, Ashwar Kwesi. See, when I got into my stage 3 of consciousness, I had to take baby steps to get to Bobby Hemmett, even though Bobby Hemmett is a very comedic type of dude. I mean, he's a lot more comedic than, say, a Phil Valentine, but it's just the energy that he had and the stuff that he would talk about would be so far-fetched and so beyond my realm of thinking that I just couldn't listen to it. I just felt like he was crazy. He didn't know what he was talking about. He's mad weird. So I had to keep living, and I had to keep going through those same experiences that Bobby Hemmett would talk about. And when I would see the same result happening to me too, and me glossing over one of Bobby Hemmett's lectures is what got me through that, that's what really turned me back on to listening to Bobby Hemmett. And I've been a student of his ever since. Now, when you get to stage 3 on the man and woman side of the game, you start to really see that there's more to life than constantly getting in relationships with these women and getting married a lot of times. But for some people at stage 3, they feel like, okay, I'm done playing the field. I'm done doing all of these things that I used to do. So for a lot of guys, stage 3 would be for them to find one woman and marry her and have a family and have kids and all that. You also have people at stage 3 like Book of Alpharonomy, who in a lot of ways tells you about a lot of life experiences that he went through that shaped the way he is today. But one thing that he always say is, you can't be none of this shit without the Most High. And just by him acknowledging the fact that there's a Most High that leads him and guides him, and he says kind of the same stuff that I say when I say that I ain't shit, you know, I'm just a vessel that's used to carry out this message to y'all. And he says the same thing. Now, when you start talking like that, that's enlightened stage 3 type of talk. And like I always say, whatever road, whatever religion, or whatever it takes for you to get to stage 3, which is that feeling of enlightenment, that total feeling of peace, that feeling of, if I die today, I won't care because I know I've done everything in my power that I wanted to do in this lifetime, so I'm straight. Whatever it is that makes you feel like that, that's your stage 3. My stage 3 is, I got into some occult knowledge, and when I got into that occult knowledge, now I'm going through the bonus stages. And when you get up to this level, when they say it's lonely at the top, it really is lonely at the top. Why do you think Papa Legba is a lonely old man with a dog? I mean, it's lonely up here, man. See, it's one thing when you're just the type of guy that don't like going to clubs simply because either for religious reasons, you know that a girl that's following the teachings of the Most High isn't going to want to degrade herself in an environment like that. See, it's a difference between that and somebody who it's hard for them to go to the club simply because their eyes have been opened so bad to the point where you can literally see entities on these people. You can literally see evil spirits, evil parasites, spirits latching themselves onto these girls and these guys, and you're seeing them act irate, seeing them act crazy, seeing them being a puppet for the parasites, spiritual parasites that's on them. And it's also a level of mercy and a level of compassion that people would never understand. Like I say, you have a different responsibility when you go to stage 3, especially as a guy. You're gonna have a lot of women that's gonna come to you telling you their deepest, darkest problems, telling you their deepest, darkest secrets. Sometimes women that if they didn't tell you nothing, you probably would have had sex with them, but your energy now is reverted back to that childhood innocence. Just like what C. Boogie talks about with that no judgment zone. Nigga, your aura is a no judgment zone, and you got these women telling you all of their problems and they're so vulnerable. Now, your responsibility will be for you to take your occult knowledge that you know about cleansing this woman's spiritual nature and all of that, and actually healing that woman so she can go to her Akasha stage, other than you seeing a woman who's vulnerable and you taking advantage of that by having sex with her. I mean, it's hard. It's very hard because I've had situations where I've been in the presence of bad chicks that if you seen them out in the street, you be like, man, you didn't fuck her? Man, she's sexy, dog. Man, I don't know what's wrong with you, man. Something must be wrong with you. But it's like, nah, because I know how they look when they take all their makeup off. When they take them eyelashes off, they take that waistband off, they make their stomach look small, they take their hair out. I know how they look under all of that because there was a woman that came to me for some therapy, just somebody to talk to that's not gonna judge them. And to me, they're undesirable sexually because the Allegua in me, I don't like being teased, and I definitely don't like being fooled or tricked. So like the good brother Arsenal say, y'all can have that, because that ain't even what I'm mad at. So for us guys, it's a lonely road, but it's a peaceful and a very, very refreshing road if you can make it there, especially if you can make it there and you're single and you don't got no kids, or even if you had kids but they're all grown now. So now you can start living your life the way you want to. When you're at stage 3, you can no longer be controlled by the system of soulless beings. And by God, if you can find an Akasha woman who loves herself and she's on stage 3 too, now that's where the real power comes from. Because before I let y'all go, everybody in the conscious community likes to talk about the Ankh and the power that the Ankh has. But there's a sign that we see every single day, that we use every single day. I mean, it's actually a key on my MacBook, and it's called the power key. Now, this power key is literally the most important key in any machine in the world. Now, in astrology, this power sign is associated with extreme power, authority, energy, and a need to control the surroundings. These signs are determined, willful, and more prone to gain power. So when you take the two components of the Ankh and you put them together, you create this power symbol, which is a stick that's going into what seems like a circle with the top missing. Now, there are so many ways that you can interpret this sign. You can say that the line represents the divine masculine, and you can talk about the circle is the divine feminine. And when that divine masculine goes into the divine feminine, the result of that is power. Now, that power sign can also represent Osiris standing in the middle of Isis while she uses her wings to wrap around Osiris to protect him. There are so many ways that you can interpret this one sign. And when I learned about this, I just felt so empowered just with that knowledge alone, because it goes back to what I always say: a man who knows himself and a woman who loves herself is the greatest power couple of all time. But like the good brother Meek Mills always say, it's levels to this shit. Just like how women has to go through these 3 stages so that she can have that unconditional love, men, we too have to go through these 3 stages so we can have that unconditional knowledge. And that, my friends, is the 3 stages of enlightenment. So that's my podcast. I know this joint is mad long, but hopefully this is a podcast that you would want to listen to again and again, just so you can soak in, and maybe you got something else that you want to add to it. And I don't mind building on this type of stuff, because I really feel like this is a lot more productive than just talking about stage 1 type shit, like talking about succubus women and the fuckery that they have, the quote unquote Pookie, Ray Ray, and Thuggo argument. I mean, there's a lot more productive things that we can do than to talk about that all day. And like I say, that's just my opinion. So can't wait to hear y'all's thoughts. Like I say, I always put my businesses out there. Make sure y'all follow me on Facebook, BandClap TV, Instagram, BandClap TV, Melly Amar, Jewelry and Gemstones. Make sure y'all follow my Instagram page, Shop Melly Amar. Any questions, donations, inquiries on my jewelry or anything like that, my email is shopmellyamar@gmail.com. As y'all can see, man, new music is definitely coming soon. Me and Jada Artiste been in the studio working on new stuff between me traveling and going back and forth to work. So like I always say, for all the people who stayed to the end of this podcast, I appreciate y'all. It's Gemini season, y'all. The story of Tupac and Biggie Smalls, 2 sides of the same coin. That podcast will be up before y'all know it. But until next time, BandClap TV, we out.